If you want to hear my sermon on the crucifixion, come to St. Albans on Friday at noon or 6. As the hinge of the Sunday of the Passion, Palm Sunday, swings us like a cabinet door from Lent's reflection on baptism and Jesus' arrival in the empty tomb into the week of Passion, where we walk the way of the cross. I think it's good for us to have heard both gospel readings that we heard today. I like the pairing of these passages from Luke because how they highlight and illustrate how God works. And it's not how we'd expect or even how we'd want. Even if we've been paying attention to Luke's gospel since we started it in December. On the Sunday of the Passion, Palm Sunday, we have two gospel texts that pair God's triumph over sin and evil through Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. If you've been reading my Food for Thought emails, you've probably been able to tell that I'm reading through God Didn't Make Us to Hate Us by the Reverend Lizzie McManus Dale. Here's what she says about Jesus prancing in on a previously unridden colt. Quote, Jesus' entry into Jerusalem is a clear and definitive moment when Jesus did something that made the empire angry enough to kill him. He did something to make his community afraid that his actions would bring pain upon all of them. What did he do, though? He did the only thing that works when facing power-hungry and power-drunk imperialist authoritarians. In January, the podcast Conspirituality had an episode about neo-kayfabe. One of the hosts interviewed Josie Reisman about her book, Ringmaster, Vince McMahon and the Unmaking of America. Neo-kayfabe is a new term, but kayfabe comes from carnivals and carny culture. It's basically pretending outwardly that you don't know that what's happening is totally fake. Mostly it's used when talking about professional wrestling. Even as everyone had a wink and a nod about the wrestling I wasn't allowed to watch growing up, everyone played along to the soap opera stories because it was more fun that way for the audience and the participants. The kayfabe myth broke in 1989 when Vince McMahon wanted to get around safety and regulation, so he just outwardly said, it's fake. That has resulted in an American ecosystem through a somewhat twisting path where it's hard to tell what's real and what isn't. The wrestling bad guy can be a hero the next night, and vice versa. Reisman and the Conspirituality host extend this to our current climate where, after decades of concern about Russia, maybe Vladimir Putin isn't that bad? Does North Korea give us anxiety, or are we excited about love letters from Kim Jong-un now? The only thing that truly matters in neo-kayfabe is being in control, or at least the appearance of it. Truth and consistency aren't that important. As Reisman says on Conspirituality, quote, everything is fake except the parts you want to be real. Total fantasy with reality poking in leads to chaos, is how she summarizes the professional wrestling arena with the facade of kayfabe having been abandoned. Jesus is challenging the reality claims of the empire as he comes prancing in on an unridden colt. Those whose power depends mostly on keeping the illusion of absolute power can't stand being made fun of. They can't handle mockery. While Rome had the power of the boot and the sword, Caesar in Rome was not actually a god. Caesar and his designees had the power to kill people, but only the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had the power to bring people, like Lazarus we heard last week, back to life. But McGinnis Dale says, quote, "New creation takes the tools of conquest and might and laughs at them in the face of the gentleness of God's almighty power. His costume is a bold lack of armor or military might. He does not need swords or armies for his power. He knows these powers of empire will kill him, and yet there he sits on a donkey, laughing at the devil with a few palm leaves as improvised, earnest props, and a crowd of hungry, desperate, freedom-seeking people." Followers of Jesus the Christ, the killed and raised God at the center of our faith, don't need to act from intimidation. We don't have to pretend to be in power, nor do we seek to amass it ourselves. We don't need to accept the myth of kayfabe or embrace the chaos of neo-kayfabe because we know Jesus as way, truth, and life. What those in power depends on force cannot stand is being told, nuh-uh. Not to make it childish, but the might of Roman or American military and empire are nothing compared to the creator of the cosmos, who hung the stars in the sky and knows them all by name, like knowing each of us by name and knowing the number of hairs on our heads. God's action in Jesus and the subversion of what we humans expect from an all-powerful God show the frailness and faultiness of those exact expectations. Whether it's Jesus riding in on a donkey or a colt and not a war horse, or marching in a display of force. Think about the Champs-Élysées on Bastille Day. God doesn't rely on brute strength. Whether it's being born in a manger or facing execution, an execution made to make a point about staying in line, God mocks the powers and principalities of this world. It's the thing they can't stand. It's the thing that brings them down. Take heart, beloved, as we stand against those who would bully or intimidate us. God has the final say, and like I said last week, this is not the end, no matter what this is. When we stand with our neighbors and speak out against abuses, Jesus stands with us as we follow him. Today, on a colt and a cross, we see where it leads. O holy Christ, your burdens are light, but your blessings are heavy, almost too weighty to bear. There's a hook in this meal. To receive is to follow, and you won't always say where. What fool would dare follow you?